I have 2 children. I've been pregnant 3 times. I'm a professional, driven woman. In my life, there really haven't been good times to have a baby, only times that were less bad. One of those less bad times was in graduate school. Anticipating the months when I would be writing a thesis instead of hanging out in a dark laser lab, we backed into a short window when it might make sense to try. I didn't have high expectations. It really was a short window, but was delighted when I got pregnant right away. My body felt great. I never got morning sickness. I am not one to turn down an excuse to sleep more. And pregnancy glow, that's real. My relationship with my husband flourished. We'd always been good at doing projects together, mainly home improvement. And making a child, well, there's no bigger DIY project. My days were vibrant. I would wake up every morning and read about what was happening that day, marveling at the pace with which everything changed. I printed out one of those posters that compares your growing baby to fruit and enjoyed watching my little one progress from a poppy seed to a kumquat to a lime, and definitely was not thinking about how that watermelon was going to get out of my body. My life was humming along in other ways, too. Most notably, I had applied for a dream job, a coveted role with a prestigious consulting firm that I most definitely was not going to get. But somehow, I was progressing through rounds of tests and interviews. In fact, at 11 and a half weeks pregnant, I was invited up to Minneapolis for a final round of interviews. I would stay with my parents in the suburbs. My mom and I would come into the city for my interviews. And afterwards, we would squeeze in some shopping for maternity clothes. The grown-up version of our long-standing Girls' Day Out tradition. I woke up the morning of my interview in my childhood bed, bleeding. Just a little, but enough to send my stomach into the basement. I asked my mom with sort of a forced casualness if she had ever had any spotting with my brothers or I. She looked me in the eye and mirrored my approach. No, but that's not unusual. I don't know why we did that. My family isn't one to avoid difficult topics. We both knew it was significant, but that was the last thing we said about it. We even managed to carry out our plan to shop for maternity clothes. A few days later, back home, I woke up in the wee hours of the morning in excruciating pain. We headed off to the emergency room where they confirmed that I was having a miscarriage, loaded me up with narcotics, and sent me off to surgery to speed up the process. I was 1 day shy of 12 weeks pregnant. 1 day before the risk of miscarriage drops dramatically. 1 day shy of 12 weeks pregnant, and then abruptly 0 days pregnant. I spent the rest of that day on the couch, cuddled up with my husband, alternating between crying and napping and sort of watching movies. The emptiness is difficult to describe. In my body, in my heart, in my head, it was all a void. so we just sat. The only interruption that day was a phone call from a recruiter offering me my dream job. The next day began the untelling. Having made it so far into my pregnancy, there were a lot of people who knew. And now they needed to unknow. Initially, I cursed myself for my inability to keep a secret. But the telling became my therapy. And so I kept on telling. And here I am, 17 years later, and I am still telling. It's not therapy anymore. It's a mission. On a micro level, it's a mission to normalize pregnancy loss. Up to a quarter of pregnancies end this way. It's incredibly common. So why don't we talk about it? Maybe we're worried about the fact that it might make some people uncomfortable. But I'm not going to solve for those people. I'm going to solve for the people who feel nothing but relief at being seen, at emerging from the shadows, shamelessly, knowing that they're not alone. On a macro level, it's about counteracting the pressure we all feel to lead a perfect life. Social media has exacerbated that, but it's existed for much longer than that. And it makes no sense. It just makes everyone miserable. We waste our time and our emotional energy maintaining a fiction instead of investing in our actual lives. And our actual lives can be pretty great, even despite the imperfections. Sometimes because of the imperfections. That dream job, I took it, and it taught me things and brought me places that I couldn't have imagined possible. And my daughter, my youngest, probably wouldn't be here. And that is unthinkable. A perfect life is a cookie cutter life. It doesn't belong to us. We are literally living our lives for somebody else, for our so-called friends on social media, for the long ago classmate that maybe we'll see every 20 years at a reunion, for the nosy neighbor who lives down the street. And I won't do it. I will live my life, this life. It isn't perfect, but it is perfectly mine.